What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. Once again, you're here with me, Meko, and my guy Morgan. Back once again for another breakdown of some of the biggest plays to come out of the Lions' most recent win over the Atlanta Falcons, where the Lions came out on top 20-6. Morgan, this was a game that I think we got a lot of good things to come out of it when looking at the defense, and we have a couple offensive plays as well that we can break down that kind of shine a light on some of the good things that came out on that side of the ball as well.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't perfect again. Despite having 2 wins in 3 weeks, we talked about it right before we got on, Miko. But the Lions are far from playing their best football at this point, and I think that's an exciting thing. So we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think the best thing to come out of this game is that we finally got to see what this defense is capable of. And I think we're going to see that in this very first play, because one of the players that I know, Morgan, I don't know about you, but that I've been very critical of is McNeil. And so going into this game, there were a lot of people that were asking us in the comment section on YouTube about, breaking down the defensive line. So the first couple clips we have here really shine a light on the defense. And we can kind of, again, with this first clip of really dive into how the defensive line was performing in this matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. So here we have this first sack that we're going to get from Aleem in this game, or his only sack of the game, but this came in the second quarter of this game. This is first down, and again, this just shows again a level that we hadn't seen from Aleem too frequently in the first two games, which is just this amazing get off from him to get into the backfield and really disrupt Desmond Ritter's timing here.
Yeah, we heard all offseason about how his new physique was going to lend to being a little bit more explosive and just faster, excuse me. So we see it here, man. He's lined up over, I think it's Chris Lindstrom, the right guard, and the 3-tech, and just shoots the gap. That's impressive from the big fella. And, he's been fine this year. It's not like he's been bad, but for a player that we've had hyped up, over the course of several off seasons in a row now, or at least a few, people want to see more from him, more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I've always kind of fallen with Aleem, where, we've seen the potential from Aleem, especially when you go back to last year in that game against the Giants. He was almost like a one-man wrecking crew, and it kind of really shined a light on this is what he's capable of when he's firing on all cylinders. 2 games into the season, I don't think I had seen that, but then going into this Falcons game, we immediately see that. And it's not just him. I mean, again, we're focusing specifically on Aleem here, but this defensive line, or this defense as a whole, was able to pick up 7 sacks on the day, and 5 of those came from the defensive line.
Yeah, it was an impressive performance all around. And McNeil here, like you talked about the speed. So 63, Lindstrom is blocking down on Bugs. So the right tackle 76 has to get a block on McNeil, and he's just not ready for Aleem to be that fast. And he's in scramble mode, it looks like, from the get-go, and just a really easy sack for the big fella.
Yeah, and this is something that we also saw or at least something that I noticed as well as being different in this game. One of those things being the fact that Isaiah Bugs was active for this game, and because he was active, we saw a little more of this, Bugs McNeil tandem than we have kind of what we were seeing like last year with those two. And I do think Aleem probably benefited a lot from the fact of having Isaiah Bugs there, somebody that can occupy 2 bodies and give him a lot more of these one-on-one opportunities that he's able to take advantage of.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? Like that's what Aaron Glenn, I'm sure, has wanted since they drafted Aleem, and they noticed that he could potentially be an impact performer like we saw against Atlanta. And yeah, man, I'm excited. I want him to keep this up. It doesn't have to be this on an every down basis, but if he could flash and provide more of a disruption, pocket collapsing disruption, that would be nice.
Yeah, because one of the things that we hear a lot in football in general when it comes to pass rush, right, is that pressure up the middle is the pressure that quarterbacks don't want to see. And so if you're able to get that from Aleem, if you're able to get that from Benito Jones or an Isaiah Bugs or a Levi Onwuzurike, it puts this defense in a much better space. And it definitely, as we see in this clip, right, speeds up the quarterback's clock to where they're not able to go through their progression or even be able to get a read off before they have to try to either scramble or just eat a sack in that situation.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Any quarterback will tell you that they hate pressure up the middle because there's nothing you can really do with it unless you're just one of these freaks like Mahomes or Herbert or someone that can just take off and still throw on the run. But if you're a Jared Goff or you're not super athletic, they gotta if you're moved off your spot. That's how edge rushers get cheap sacks is by a lot of the time they're the product of interior pressure, right? So.
Yeah,
Mhm.
perfect. That's a great way of describing that. Um, all right, so the next play that we're gonna get into here is again not necessarily focused on the defensive line, but it is another defensive player that had an amazing game. Um, again, we probably could have done this entire film study on Brian Branch and just literally went through every single play where he was making a play, but for the sake of time and for the sake of this video, we just decided to focus on one play, and that's going to be this play where he is coming in coverage, or is dropping in coverage and being able to diagnose what is happening here with Kyle Pitts, and is able to make a great read and react and make a great tackle for loss.
So yeah, you'll see Branch here working in the nickel. They have Pitts coming in motion, and it's a design swing pass. And really, Bijan is supposed to get a block on Brian Branch at this point. You'll see over here. Ready? You're going to see Bijan out here in the open, and he's just running behind Brian Branch because he had no chance. It was an impressive play, man. He did this over and over again. He had 3 tackles for loss. Just a really, really impressive performance from the kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian Branch is continuing to showcase why he should have been a first round pick. I think, in my opinion, he was somebody that late in the draft process, or probably like in the middle of the draft process, I was very much in favor of, like, yo, this is a guy you may even actually consider taking at 6, because of these level of instincts and playmaking ability. He just, like you said, easily diagnoses this play, beats the blocker in front of him, and again, like, if Brian Branch gets his hands on you, I don't know if he has a missed tackle this season. If he does, he probably only has one. Like, that's kind of, I feel very confident in saying that right now without having any stats on hand.
I'm right there with you. I think Dan Campbell said something in the either during I think during training camp that Branch, if he gets his hands on you, you're going down, and we've seen that over and over again already this season. Yeah, he's really good at this too, evading blocks in space because there'll be linemen out there or a super athlete like Bijan. So watch Bijan here. Bijan's in the slot, so he's lined up right across from Branch, and just watch what happens here. Branch just recognizes it so quickly. Bijan has no chance, and it's a tackle for loss. Like they're the position coach, Atlanta's running back coach, is probably going to get on Bijan for that. But at the end of the day, what can you do if he diagnosed it so early and has really good burst and quickness, and he just got there in an instant. So this is how elite playmakers are made, though. Brian Branch is going to be one. Pretty certain on that.
And I think that's the other thing too. Like, to your point about, like, what can Bijan do in the situation? You also got to keep in mind, like, he doesn't know when the ball is thrown yet. So it's like he kind of has to wait to be able to make contact. But
Hmm.
when you have a guy like Brian Branch, who is surveying the play, he sees Kyle Pitts come into motion, and it's almost like he already knows, like, okay, this is my responsibility, to contain this play. And it's just no wasted motion. And like you said, like, there are so many other plays in this game where he does this exact same thing. Like you said, 3 tackles for loss, where he just knifes through, offensive linemen or receivers, and is able to clean up these plays before, they're ever able to get started.
Yeah, he's just on it. You can tell he watches film. You can tell he understands schemes and what offenses are trying to do to him. I mean, you don't start for Nick Saban at Alabama as a freshman, as a true freshman, unless you're a Brian Branch level processor. There's just no way because that's Nick Saban's baby. I think we've mentioned this already on this show. But yeah, man, I'm so impressed with him. I thought we were going to be impressed. Like I know you were a fan. I know Eric Schlitt was a giant fan of Brian Branch during the pre-draft process. I just this has blown me away already though through 3 games, and my expectations were already really high for him.
Yeah, I went from thinking like, hey, this is somebody that, again, he could probably play the nickel for you if you wanted to move CJ GJ to safety or something like that. But I definitely thought, like, okay, it was going to take him a couple games. I thought maybe an injury would probably have to happen for him to get on the field. And since camp, right, winning the starting job, and then 3 games into the season, just Dan Campbell, I think, has said it best, right? When even when they were in the preseason, the moments just don't seem too big for some of these rookies, and Brian Branch is a prime example of that. Every time he's stepped on the field through the first 3 weeks, he just never seems out of place. He never seems like he's over his head or like he doesn't know where he's supposed to be. And it's one of the reasons why, like, I don't know if he'll have the stats necessarily to, get him the Defensive Rookie of the Year award, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the front runners for it because the dude just makes plays. And so he may have, maybe the tackles and the tackles for losses, but I don't know if he'll necessarily have like interceptions or fumbles to maybe help him secure that award over maybe the likes of a pass rusher or something like that.
Yeah, he would have to accumulate like a bunch of turnovers this year. Probably, I don't know, maybe 10-ish. Like, I don't know, maybe a little less than that, 7 to 8. Like, what if he has 6 picks and 2 fumbles recovered?
I mean, I think
crazy.
the fact that Sauce was able to win it last year with less interceptions than Hutch
True.
does give Brian like a chance. And so I think if the Lions are in the playoffs, if they win the division, if like they're that good, and let's just say he's leading the team in tackles or he's like in the top 3 of tackles on this team, that might be enough. Just because, like, as we saw in this play, and if you go back and you watch this game, dude was everywhere. There's no way of getting away from him, and he never feels out of position. He just knows where the football is going to be, or he understands, like you said, he does enough studying to know where he needs to be in order to help his defense make plays.
Yeah, man, I 100% on all of that. And then our own Jeremy Reisman, the producer over at Pride of Detroit, I respect this man's perspective on football, and he said it during like towards the end of training camp or preseason or something around that time. But he said Brian Branch is making a case to be the best defender on this team, and I was like, hold on now, like, for real?
And it's crazy to say, right? Because he plays a nickel position. He's not even the safety. He's playing nickel, but everything he's done, and we'll kind of move on to the next player for this, but like again, through 3 weeks, there just doesn't seem like anything he can't do. He can cover, he can come up and run support. He's able to blitz if you ask him to blitz. He's reading and diagnosing plays. Like, he doesn't look like a rookie, Morgan. Like, I guess that's the easiest way to say it. Like, he just doesn't look like a rookie. He definitely doesn't look like he should have been a 2nd-round pick.
No, he played 100% of the snaps on against the Falcons too. Didn't come off the field, so it's crazy.
And listen, and I kind of expect that. I don't know if that's going to change. Like, I mean, maybe not 100%, but like, I don't think he'll ever. I think his lowest total was like 60 or 70. I don't think it dips below 80 again for the rest.
I don't think he'll come off I think he'll be a player like Kirby. They're not going to take him off, especially now that CJ's hurt. Like, Tracy's obviously going to play a lot now, but I don't expect, because even on plays, like when I was watching the film last night, we can move on after this, but like when they were having 8 in the box and it was 5, like a 5-man front, so 5 defensive linemen, like either in a 3-point stance or in a 2-point stance, like Hutch and Jack Campbell or Romeo. And then the linebackers pretty often were like a combination of Anzalone, Campbell, Barnes, or Malcolm, and then Branch. Branch was always right there in the box, stacked up as a linebacker. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to take him off the field anymore.
Listen, this is my own personal opinion. If I would rather have Brian Branch on the field than Malcolm Rodriguez. I'll just say that.
Dude, yeah, 168,000%. Yeah.
Like, if you're looking for someone to be able to do those types of things, I would rather see Brian on the field than Malcolm, and I think he could just again help this defense out in a big way. But speaking of helping this defense out in a big way, we would be remiss to do this breakdown and not highlight some of the play that Aiden Hutchinson had. Again, if you guys are checking out this film study, we're trying to kind of keep this somewhat on the shorter side. So we're only taking a look at, one play from each of these players. But again, Hutch is another example where I think we probably could have done an entire film study on his performance in this game and just how he's been able to continue to stack up pressures, but in this game, turn those pressures actually into sacks, which is something that we can kind of take a look at here in this first play. So this is the game sealing, sack fumble that Hutch was able to get. And This is something that we've seen the Lions do a little bit more this season, which is moving him to, more of an inside rush, opportunity, and he's eating guys' lunch every time he seems to get this opportunity.
Yeah, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, Miko. This is basketball, but football here. So they got Hutch lined up. This is the very end of the game, so he knows it's a passing down, that he knows they're going to throw the ball. So he's standing over the guard, can sell out against the pass. And I wrote this in my film study, but watch this. He strings together these moves here. So he hits him with a bull, then he goes into his long arm. So you'll see it again here. So he'll two hands, bull. He'll transition to his right arm where he long arms him, and then he uses his left arm to rip. So bull, long arm, left arm, rip. See ya. And he's on him.
And so for me, when watching this play specifically, because this is like, again, if our audience doesn't remember, this is right after Tracy dropped that pick. And I was like, this game is a turnover away from just being like done. And it just felt like somebody was going to get there. And everything about this play just screams Hutch's advantage. Like you said, he's already in a stand-up position, but not just in a stand-up position. He's in a stand-up position over a guard.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he gets a good like running start. This kind of reminds me of the play that he had when he was at Michigan against the tackle from Ohio State, where like he just kind of like, I'm in a stand up, you're gonna have to go backwards, and by the time I contact you, like I've already won.
Yeah,
And
yeah, go ahead.
no, and I was just gonna say, like, and that's just kind of that's where I feel like he's at his best, right? Like when he's able to win with his first move, it makes it easier for him to transition to his second and possibly even third move so that he can get to the quarterback.
Absolutely. Great point to the Ohio State throwback, too. I know exactly which clip you're talking about. Yeah, it sucks for an offensive lineman. This is hell for an offensive lineman, to be honest, just because you're like, all right, like they don't even have to respect the run. They could care less about their gap and like their rush integrity. Like they're just going to go. Like they got Jack Campbell out there working against the other tackle. So yeah, it's a tough situation to be in as an offensive lineman, and yeah, this is just a clean win, man. I really love the string of moves though. Boom, 1, 2, 3, peace.
And this is something that I think Hutch is getting better at, right? I think last year, when you watched him in his rookie year, he tend to like lean heavily on his bull rush. He tried to lean heavily on his power, and it didn't always work, right? He still was obviously able to get 9.5 sacks, but like there were games in there, especially early in that season, where those moves weren't working. And I think one of the biggest steps in his progression that we've been able to see this year is him have a counter ready. So whether it's a long arm, whether it's a spin move, which he's really starting to use that spin move more, and I'm loving that from him. But this is the maturity that you want to see in your second overall pick. Again, understanding his rush lanes, understanding how to set up these offensive linemen so that he can, win not just with one move, but win with a couple.
Yeah, this is advanced stuff. This is how, the, pretty good pass rushers potentially become great is, get a deeper bag, understand what a lineman's trying to do to you, in a certain situation, and kind of know, like have a rush plan. In this situation, I'm pretty sure he had this in his head. He was like, if he just tries to, put two hands in my chest and anchor, I'm just going to hit him with the little long arm, because Hutch's arms aren't long, but he's gotten stronger. So he hit him with that long arm and then was able to rip. It's just that was nice to see, like you said, being able to string those together.
And I think that was almost kind of like a theme with this entire defensive line. Again, going back and watching the tape on this game, is that like these guys really trusted their power. And I think it kind of goes back to something that Dan Campbell was saying in his press conference coming out of that Seattle game of like, hey, our defensive line has to be able to transition faster from, run defense to pass rush. And I felt like we really saw that in this game from the likes of Aleem, Benito, and like we just looked at right now with Hutch, understanding like how quickly they need to flip the switch from like, okay, this is clearly a pass rush situation. I need to beat this guy as quickly as I possibly can before they can get set and be able to anchor.
That's honestly a really great point, because and it's a really great point because against the Falcons, who are going to run, they tried to run the football at least. It
Yeah.
didn't work, but yeah, they definitely had to honor the run, and yeah, they still really got after the passer because a lot of the time the Falcons were throwing the ball out of, you know, uh, 12 personnel or 22 personnel, even sometimes like two tight ends, two running backs. So a lot of the times the Lions were doing that with a heavy box, and good on them. It was good to see, and that's no slouch of an offensive line. They're a better run blocking offensive line in Atlanta with Jake Matthews and Lindstrom and all those guys, but there's still no slouches when it comes to pass blocking.
No, and I think this was a really good example of what happens when your defensive line gets pressure early, when they get hits on your quarterback early. Everything is thrown out of rhythm and everything's thrown out of whack. So it makes it much more difficult. Like you said, even for an offensive line that's pretty good, it makes it really difficult for them to just be able to find their bearings when they're not sure where pressure is going to come from. I mean, again, like I said earlier, 7 sacks from 6 different players. You don't know who's going to be, coming after your quarterback on any given down. So kudos to Aaron Glenn. Kudos to this defensive line for stepping up to the challenge. And it gives you a lot of confidence going forward, into a game, this week, that the opponent feels somewhat similar, as far as the quarterback, the offensive line. It makes you at least feel confident that this type of performance could be repeatable. Um, if they come in with the same type of mindset.
Yeah, I think so. If they can replicate more of this, it doesn't always have to be 6 sacks or 7 sacks or something like that. But if they can get 2 or 3 sacks and get some quarterback hits and make people uncomfortable, then I think that'll be enough. This offense can get cracking. Well, hopefully, right? Knock on wood again.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, the defense, like we said at the beginning of this, right? Defense had a phenomenal performance, but the offense, while it wasn't as consistently good throughout the game, it did have their wow moments. And I don't think there was a bigger wow moment than Sam LaPorta's first touchdown in his young NFL career.
This is a beauty, man. I love this. We'll let it run one time here.
Yeah, this is one of those plays where, again, Ben Johnson kind of flexes his, genius in play calling. And I mean, again, fools the defense, fooled me watching the game, and easy pitch and catch for a touchdown.
Yeah, this is gorgeous. So we sit in that end zone, so it's always fun when these plays break open. Like we had the JMO touchdown against Minnesota last year. So the Lions are in 12 personnel, so they got one back and two tight ends, and essentially everything besides LaPorta and the play fake is flowing to the left. You'll see the safety at the top, right? You're going to see the safety just overcommit to the corner. So LaPorta's going to run a corner post. So he's going to fake like he runs the corner at the top of his route. Boom. Waits for the safety to flip his hips, and then he's gone. So just a good ball by Goff, too. I thought that was important. He put it right on the money. Let's see if we can see it
Yes.
here.
Yeah, stands in there and takes a really good hit from Calais Campbell.
Yeah, I took a shot, and Calais Campbell is no small human either. That's a big dude. You can see down there at the bottom of your screen. But yes, I think a couple people on Twitter were like, what was that safety doing? And I still kind of wonder, he just really committed to the corner. But LaPorta sold at the top of his route, though. I will say it's a clean route.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sudden.
I mean, yeah, because he almost runs it, like you said, it looks for a minute like, okay, maybe it could be just like, maybe he's just going to be streaking down the field. So again, if you're Richie Grant, number 27 for the Falcons, you're like, okay, well, I'm the only deep safety, so I have to cover the deepest route, which is Sam LaPorta's. But when he decides to plant his foot in the ground and cut back across your face, well, you don't have help at this point.
No, too late at that point.
Yeah, and so this is, again, this is a great play for, a defense that's called, and you're able to quickly exploit it. And again, it looks like, you have, short zone, again, Falcons are pressing at the line. So again, they're trying to contend with anything that's being thrown short here. But again, no one gets hands or anything on Sam LaPorta, so he has an easy release. And then, I mean, again, this is as easy as it comes, right? If you're a quarterback and a tight end at this point, like you're just, like I said earlier, pitch and catch.
Yeah, Goff put it on the money, like you said, took a shot. Yeah, LaPorta is looking like another one that Brad Holmes knocked out of the park, man, because he does the little things right. He's a good blocker already. He tries hard. He's only going to get better as a blocker. Um, yeah,
I
this was
think
just
another thing that goes under uh unnoticed in this play, right? So we
mm,
have Swift coming, or not Swift, sorry. Amon Ra come back across the formation. And I think another thing that gets this safety to bite is that once again, we talked about this, I believe with the Chiefs game, what Jared Goff is able to do with his eyes. He gives Amon-Ra just a little bit of a look before he finally plants and looks back to LaPorta. So I think this play for a while looks like, okay, they're just going to dump it off to St. Brown, try to pick up a couple quick yards, and then it's just a quick plant and launch. And again, you just catch the entire defense kind of just guessing in this moment.
yeah, really good concept. I think someone tweeted today about how it's a copycat league. Like a couple teams have run this concept in the last like year or two, and they executed to perfection. And it was funny. I think I saw this on the broadcast or on Twitter, maybe, but Goff after the touchdown like did like this to I think Ben Johnson because he was like he's pretty open.
Yeah.
So, you
I mean,
know,
again, and I think that's a great this play in particular is a great play when people are wondering like, hey, where are these deep shots going to come? Like, where not? How are the Lions going to extend, the field when we still won't have JMO back for a couple more weeks? Um, and some of the other receivers aren't necessarily deep threats. Like obviously, Khalif can get open here and there. They'd like to send Josh Reynolds on some of those deeper posts or deep corners, but like again, if you're just looking for somebody to streak, down the middle of the field, like where do those plays come from? And I think Ben Johnson is doing a really good job of showcasing, like, hey, we can get guys open, um, even out of formations that you may not be expecting, someone to necessarily be streaking down the field.
yeah, that's one thing that Ben Johnson's going to continue to do. Man, they almost hit on that deep shot to Khalif. Was it Khalif? Yeah, it was Khalif. I think someone made a point. Do you remember that one? Was it? Yeah,
Yeah,
Khalif. Yep.
yeah,
Um,
because I think he just overshot Khalif on that one. And so it's like those plays are there. And I think it's unfortunately like it's going to sometimes depend on, Jared Goff just hitting some of those. Um, but again, like it at least we know that those plays are in the playbook. We know that, they can dial them up and they can find, the types of one-on-one matchups that they're looking for um, against the defense.
yeah, if they can continue to do that, get St. Brown in advantageous positions. They got him on a couple of deep ones against the Falcons. I remember that one towards the boundary. That was a dot. That was a great throw by Goff, man. I was like, goodness gracious, that couldn't have been better. And yeah,
Yeah, and again, like this play by Laporta is one of the I hate to say one of the few, but it's one of two touchdowns that the offense was able to generate. The next one we're about to break down here in a second. But again, when your defense is playing so well, it does kind of cover up any type of like, lulls that your offense may be going through. But after this touchdown happened, like again, the offense hit a little bit of a rough patch, but this next play that we're going to look at, I think is a great play by Jared Goff, not just for the simple fact that he scores, but for the fact of like everything that he put into this drive to get this team into this position.
yep,
So again, just I think while watching this game, I don't know how you were feeling, but while watching this game, I remember just looking at my TV like, will you guys run it to the left just a little bit more? And when they finally did, I was like, well, that's not what I meant, but great. Like, I think that was like the only response that I kind of had because I don't think, just like the Falcons weren't expecting this, I don't think there was a single person in Ford Field um, that was expecting Jared Goff to run this in for a touchdown.
no, man, I don't think anybody, including Calais Campbell, you can see him here lined up outside of Panay Sewell, jumps inside, one too many steps, and that was all she wrote, man. I think even Goff was surprised at how open the path was to the end zone for him. Just easy.
And again, I think this is where, as fans, we kind of have to take a step back and realize that even within a football game, right, they're still technically like you're kind of playing chess. You're kind of setting up your opponent so that you can catch them with a counter that they're just not expecting. I said earlier, like I was kind of begging the Lions to run to the left more often because they seemed hell bent on running Jahmyr Gibbs or any of the other running backs somewhere along the right side of the offensive line, even if it wasn't necessarily the right, like the entire right side, like right tackle, but just like, on the right shoulder of Frank Ragnow or something of that nature. And I just kept thinking, like, why aren't you running left more? Well, because they ran right so much, I think that's another thing that opens this play up is that everybody on the Falcons thinks that this ball is going to the right.
Yeah, you can see it, especially from that last angle, how far everybody jumps at the play fake to Jahmyr. You can see it when we go back to right here. So watch 44, Calais, everybody. Boom. At that point, it's over because everyone's moving that way, and Jared's already got his right foot in the ground and is going. So LaPorta gets a little bit of he doesn't actually. No, he doesn't.
Well, I was gonna say though, but like that also to your point though, right? Everybody bit on this. This player here, which I think that might be, uh, is that Richie Grant again?
27. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So Richie
Tough
Grant again, right? Like, so he's probably supposed to have outside contain here. Obviously, Calais Campbell's also supposed to like, have some level of contain here, but both guys bite on the play fake, to the run on the inside or at least on the right side. And Richie Grant doesn't even look at Jared Goff. Like you can tell by how far he over pursues. Never look twice at Jared Goff on this play. And this is how you get a touchdown that helps extend your lead and kind of lock the game up for the Lions at that point.
Yeah, this was a great play call. I think Ben Johnson was probably even surprised at how well this worked because, like you said, everything had been favoring the Lions running this ball to the right again, which is interesting because if it were me, I'd be running behind Sewell and Jonah Jackson a lot more. But
I mean, yeah, and I think like I said, I think that's where like the chess match kind of comes into this because again, you and I are on the same wavelength where it's like, okay, why wouldn't you run behind, the duo of two good offensive linemen that you have in Sewell and Jackson? But again, it's body blows. It's setting you up for, to be looking over here when you have a left hook coming that you just never saw. And so again, great play calling, great play design, great execution by Jared Goff in this moment. Again, not just because he gets the touchdown, but we got to remember Jared Goff threw another interception in this game. That didn't bite them in the butt this time, but it's still throwing an interception. And even like, I talked about it in the video that I did yesterday. The Lions had this third quarter lull where they weren't able to get, many first downs. They weren't able to get any points. He really kind of started to showcase like his attitude of like, yo, like I want to put the team on my shoulders and get us this touchdown so we can actually like lock up this win. And then to be able to cap it off with a touchdown run of his own speaks volumes to his character and just again how he's been able to grow and mature here in Detroit.
Yeah, I think he said that too, if I'm not mistaken, like about how he's like grown up a whole lot here because he was a Cali kid for life prior to coming here. Like high school, California, went to Cal, and then what was he with the Rams? No, he was with the Rams the first year they were in LA.
Or no, he was with the Rams when they were in St. Louis, and then when they moved back to LA, and then when he was with them in LA for 1 year.
Okay, so he did 1 year in St. Louis. I guess that's okay. I'm just kidding.
I mean, but like that. I mean, again, being put into an environment where your coaching staff believes in you, where again they're not afraid to put the ball in your hands and say like, hey, lead us down the field and trust you in a situation like this to be like, hey, like we're gonna call this play. You have every right to pull this and run it in yourself if the defense bites on it. And again, being prepared, being and having the grit and mental fortitude to be able to execute this play. So yeah, I mean, those are just some of the plays that we were able to highlight in this week. Like I said, this video is already pushing 40 minutes and we could have, and that's only us highlighting just a couple of plays. There are so many videos that we could have done highlighting just the performance of Aleem or Brian Branch or Hutch, or even just, again, Jared Goff and just how solid he was in this game. and never really losing his cool even after that interception. There were so many things that we could have highlighted, but these are some of the top plays that we found in this game. Um, if you're watching this and there's a couple plays that you didn't see us highlight that you also want to call out, call those out in the comment section below. Let us know some things that really stood out to you in this game. And also, if you're looking for any more Lions content, be sure to head over to prideofdetroit.com. Morgan actually has an article up where he broke down some of the other plays from the defense. So you actually can read his article, and he actually has clips of those plays as well. So you can see exactly what he's talking about and how these things unfolded and the type of impact that they had on the game there. So I'll make sure to add a link in the description to that article so that you guys can all check that out as well. But if you're new to this channel, we're so close to 10,000 subscribers. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to hit that notification bell. All of those things help out this channel immensely. And yeah, Morgan, anything you got for the people?
No, man, I appreciate everyone for supporting and tuning in, and appreciate you for having me, Meko. This is fun. We're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you always having time and again bringing so much football knowledge to this video and to the channel and to Pride of Detroit in general. So, but yo, that's gonna do it for me. That's gonna do it for Morgan. Appreciate you guys for all stopping by, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.